Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest, 8-Second Gaming. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the best settings that you are going to be wanting to run for Season 19. Having the right settings to make your game run as smoothly as possible and help you as much as you can is very key. So we're going to be breaking these all down, but just quickly, if you guys are looking to take your Pixel to the next level, then you need to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there, we have top level coaches, including myself, creating the best, most highly informative guides to make you the best player you can possibly be. We have a legend guys, VOD reviews, and much more, so click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, and start to improve today. But okay, with that out of the way, let's hop into things. And to start off, we are going to be going over the gameplay tab. And the first thing in the gameplay tab is the interact prompt style. Now, this is just a little bit of information that does pop up when you are looking at an item on the ground, such as a weapon or an attachment. Now, these little pop-ups can obstruct some views when you are in some certain situations, if you're crouching behind an attachment or something along those lines. So some people do find it very frustrating. I, however, have not run into this issue, and it does help me loot a little bit faster, so I opt to keep this on. Looting fast is very key, so if it helps me loot faster, I like it, so I do like to keep this on. Next up, we've got button hints, and this is just a thing on your HUD that says what button is bound to what. This doesn't really affect anything, it doesn't really have any impact on the game, so you can keep it on, turn it off, it's up to you. Next up, we have crosshair damage feedback. This should be off. These are hit markers, and they clutter up your screen for no reason. You will know if you are hitting somebody because the damage numbers are going to be popping up. So you don't need hit markers, it's just going to cause some unnecessary stuff on your screen. Turn these off. And speaking of damage numbers, that's the next thing that we're going to be going into, and this should be set to stacking and only stacking. You don't want to have this turned off because if it's off, you're not going to get any damage numbers and you're not going to be able to give accurate calls to your teammates on how much damage you have done to an enemy. Also, for floating, it's going to give you each individual bullet damage number, and you are not going to be able to add that up in your head in the time it takes for your team to get that accurate call out. And if you have both turned on, it's just going to have unnecessary numbers flying around your screen that are taking up valuable screen space. You don't want to have both. Stacking is the way to go. It gives you the most amount of precise information that you can then give to your teammates while taking up minimal screen space. But next up, we can move to ping opacity, and this should be turned to faded. If your teammates are the type to spam ping stuff and you are in the middle of a fight, it can cause you to miss some key details or even lose your enemy in one of the pings, so faded is the best option. Next up, we have obituaries, and this is the kill feed, and the kill feed is very important. It gives you a bunch of information that you need to have while going into fights. Always keep this turned on. Minimap rotation is the next thing, and this is 100% personal choice. I like to leave this off because it does screw around with my perception when it is spinning all over the place. I like to know which way's north, which way's south, which way's east, which way's west, without having to deal with the minimap spinning all around. But if you are that type of person that likes to have the rotation going on, by all means, have it going. Next up, we have weapon auto cycle on empty, and again, this should be turned to off. You want to be in control of your character as much as you possibly can. You should know when your gun is getting low on ammo because 1, there's the little pop-up on your HUD, and 2, you should know how much ammo is in your gun. If it auto swaps for you and you try to swap at the same time, you could run into some issues where you are swapping back to the gun that's empty, and that can get you killed. Be in control of your character, have this set to off. And that is the same for the next two with auto sprint and double tap sprint. You want to be in control of your character as much as you possibly can. Auto sprint and double tap can cause some issues with you losing control of your character, and in some situations where you need to be sneaky and you want to walk or you need to crouch or something like that, it can have some issues. Unless you have something going on with your hands or something like that where you cannot sprint all the time by pressing down one of the keys or one of your thumbsticks, anything like that, then you can have it on. But if you don't have anything like that, I do recommend turning these off. Next up, we have jetpack control, and this is only going to affect Valkyrie players. Now, I do recommend having this on hold, though I do hear that some controller players play on toggle because it gives them more control. This is going to be 100% personal preference, so play around with whichever one you like and use that. Next up, we have incoming damage feedback, and this should be set to 2D. Again, like other things in the gameplay tab, 3D just takes up too much screen space. You don't need it, and both is just going to take up way too much screen space. 2D is a nice, compact, minimalistic style that will show you the information that you need without taking as much screen space. Next up, we have taking damage closes death box or crafting menu. This should be off. In a fight, if you need to get that clutch armor swap or you need to craft in zone, having this close whenever you take damage can be very frustrating or lead you to actually lose a fight because you can't get that armor swap. And like I mentioned before, you want to be in control of your character as much as you possibly can. This is going to be one of those ones that's a little bit weird to get used to if you haven't had it on before, but trust me, the few deaths that it might cause is very worth it. Next up, we have a new addition in Season 19, and this is off-screen portraits. This is the little thing that pops up with your teammate's icon showing them which direction they are. Now this is going to be one of the ones that is personal preference, but if you are the type that loses your teammates very easily in fights and you have no idea where they are, or you are a support player, I highly recommend having these on. Knowing where your teammates are in fights is very important, especially if you're an entry fragger and you need to back off and try to find them, because then you can have a safe spot to heal. Or if you're a support player, because if something's going on, you need to be able to get back to your team, or you need to be able to get to them to help them at a moment's notice. And if you don't know where they are, that can cause some issues. So those are the two types of plays that I do recommend having these on for, though it is personal preference. Next up, we have hop up, pop up, and this just shows when a hop up is attached to a weapon. This is 100% personal choice. Now, next up, we're going to be talking about streamer mode and anonymous mode at the same time, because I actually do recommend that you turn these on. The reason that I recommend that you turn these on is because when you have anonymous mode on, all it does is show something like Bangalore 2675 instead of Little Johnny Timmy Boy. The reason that that is very important is because if you are in a fight, especially if you're solo queuing and your teammate cracks somebody, in the kill feed, it will say your teammate cracked a Bangalore. Then if the other teammate that you have knocks somebody and they knock, say, a Pathfinder, you will know that that is not the same person that was low to begin with. If callouts are not accurate, you will still have a good amount of information while just having anonymous mode on. And on top of that, there is another small little bonus that does help some people out. And this is for the people that have anxiety going up against better players. Sometimes if you know that there is a pro player or a known streamer in your game, you start to freeze up because you get very nervous. But if you have streamer and anonymous mode on, you won't be able to see their name, so you won't know. This is something that did help one of my teammates out all the way back in season 3 when we were climbing in Pred. We were in these games with all these pro players, he would start to get really nervous, so he turned on streamer mode. It helped him instantly. So if you're that type of player, try this out. The next important thing is the performance display, and this should always be on. One, you want to know how your frames are looking throughout the game because you want to know if you're dropping frames, because that could be an issue. But also there are so many other useful things to see on the performance display, such as the packet loss and your ping. If you're getting high ping spikes or you're getting packet loss, that will affect your fights because then you're going to be lagging. So if you're having any of those issues, you will know because the performance display is on and you will be able to pick your fights accordingly. Moving into the accessibility tab for the colorblind mode, just use whatever settings you need if you are colorblind. That is 100% up to you, because if you need something, use it. But the one thing that I do really want to touch on is subtitles. If you are not hearing impaired, I highly recommend turning these off. The human eye is drawn to movement, so if your character says a voice line while you're in the middle of a fight or while you're doing something, your eye is going to be naturally drawn to the subtitles. If you do that, you can miss key details like a team running up on you, or if you're in a fight and you look towards the subtitles, you could miss somebody trying to swing out on you. It's little things like that that can win or lose you fights, so please turn these off if you are not hearing impaired. But that is everything you need to know for the gameplay tab, so let's move on into the video tab. And for the display mode, I highly recommend playing in full screen. It just gives you the best performance. If you're all tabbing a lot, it can be annoying to have to minimize your game. I get that, but trust me, it is worth it. Next up, we have the aspect ratio and the resolution. I'm going to talk about these at the same time because unless you are somebody that is trying to do stretched res or anything like that, or you don't mind borders, then just use the native aspect and resolution ratios. They're just going to be better for you. Next up though, we're going to be talking about brightness, and brightness should be set a little bit higher than normal. Brightness is very important, especially if you are in a dark part of the map, because if they're using a skin that isn't super colorful like Airship Assassin, then they can blend into the back and be kind of camouflaged. But if you have your brightness turned up a little bit more, then you should be able to pick them out a little bit easier. I recommend going somewhere between 55 and 60%, though 65 would probably be my upper limits. I personally use 59%, it's what I'm comfortable with, but play around with it and find whichever one you like. Next up, we have FOV, and you should be turning this up as high as you possibly can. Having a wide field of view is going to help you see more things and be better in the long run. Though 110 FOV can cause some weird fisheye effect that will affect some players if they don't like it. I am one of those people, I don't like the fisheye effect. So I personally play on 104 field of view. And guys, 104 FOV, highly slept on. If you haven't tried it yet, give it a shot. Trust me, you'll love it. Next up, we've got FOV ability scaling. Disable this immediately. What this does is if there's anything that increases your movement speed, like a Bloodhound ult or an Octane stim, your field of view will increase with that. It's just kind of showing that you're running faster. It's kind of like when Fast and the Furious, they hit the NOS, they get that weird effect going on. It's the same thing. But when your FOV increases, your sensitivity changes as well. And if your sensitivity changes mid-fight, that can cause some issues. So guys, turn this off, it's better for you. And next up, we gotta talk about sprint view shake. This should be set to minimal. You don't want your screen shaking around all the place while you're moving around. Now, when it comes to the actual advanced settings in the video guide, all of it really depends on what your computer can handle. If your computer is not top of the line, turn everything off, turn it to low, turn it as low as it possibly can be. Yes, your graphics are gonna look bad. Yes, it's gonna look like Play-Doh, but coming from somebody who played on the lowest settings for 2 years when the game first came out, you get used to it and you don't even notice it after a while. But even if you do have a good PC, I do highly recommend that you turn sun shadow coverage, sun shadow detail, and spot shadow detail to low. Shadows can be very annoying in this game. You don't want to deal with them because people can play around in shadows and cause you to miss some shots. So those are the ones I just recommend that every single person turn off or turn to low. But let me know what kind of video we should cover next in the comments down below, and if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest and greatest because I just tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash the like, subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, I made second game, and I'll see you guys in the next one.